Once the children have learned about the spinach family itself, the Swiss chard, the spinach, and the beets, then what we want to do is have them practice sowing that, because these guys are what I would call medium-sized seeds. So we're going to do a slightly larger one to take home, and it can be any pot of any sort as long as we've got some drainage at the bottom. We're going to use our potting soil again, peat, compost, and perlite in here. And we can encourage our children to use their trowels, and they will insist on calling them shovels or little shovels, but we really want them to encourage them to be using the proper terminology. So this is a trowel, and once again, one child will start by doing it with his hands because he can get more in his hand than in the trowel, and that's fine too. We want to encourage our children to get the feel of soil on their hands as not being something that's ick. And so the more they're inclined to do that, the more comfortable they are with just being in this. And we want them to fill it up. Now, the thing to do then is get them to do this, and you're going to go bonk, 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 and they love saying bonk, bonk, bonk. And what that's doing is shaking down the soil, and you'll notice how much it's disappeared in there. So we're going to add some more soil to the line, and you can be any line that you choose in whichever pot you use. Now we tell them next they have to make a smooth sowing surface. They want to push the soil down real hard, and I really want to encourage them not to do that, because that's compressing your soil and it's compressing all the pores in the potting soil, so there's no room for air or for water. So we tell them pat but not push is the way I like to do it. So they made it nice and soft. Okay, so the next thing is we want them to make this into a pie. And so with their fingers or their trowels or with one of these, you want them to make little triangles. So I call this the pizza. And make it nice and deep so we know what we've got. And because we're going to plant 3 seeds, 3 different kinds of seeds, and we don't want to just have them scattered all over because we want to see how they grow. So now we've got our 3 triangles. So in our little cup, we'll start off with the biggest one. That's our Swiss chard. And in our cup, we're going to put a few seeds, and in this case, maybe 3 or 4, and hand the cup to them. They can put it on their hand. Once again, they're going to do this. So we want to have them cup their hand, and they're going to just place these seeds on top. 1. And in reality, we know that a Swiss chard is going to be much bigger in the ground, but this is what I call baby Swiss chard. So we're going to eat it when it's really small, so that's okay. So they're going to want to pat them down, but no, just tell them to leave them on the surface. We want to move on to the next one, which is going to be our beets. And our beets are very similar. They look very much like Swiss chard. So that's why we got to be careful that we don't put these guys in a different on top of the Swiss chard. So, but they can use the tray if they wish and just take them out and place them in. But I do find it easier to just do it from my hand. And they're going to place them neatly on top. And then if they've got extra, they don't put them on. They have to pass them back, put them in the little tray so that we can put them in our trays. And then the very last one is our spinach. And reiterate at this point that these guys are all in the same plant family, so they're all going to germinate at the same time, and they're going to look the same as they start to grow. But after they get a little bigger, that's when they're going to see the differences. Okay. And spinach is kind of neat because it's a different one. It looks like little tiny pebbles, which is kind of cool. So pop it in their hands. And see, they look like just like little pebbles. So they're quite different than the sort of spongy ones that look like beets. And that's kind of fascinating all by itself. And so we're going to put a few of these guys in. Okay, now what are we going to do next? Before we cover them over, what we want to do is put labels on. So we always want to label because the children will remember, and this is what we're wanting to do, is for them to remember what it is that they're growing. And so what I like to do is either some tape, or you can glue them on, or you can even laminate the little tops so that if they get wet, they don't get destroyed. So this guy is spinach Popeye for strong muscles. And that's because spinach has a lot of iron in them. And the next one is our Swiss chard. And Swiss chard is fun because it's got all sorts of different colored stems. And by the way, you can eat the stems as well as the leaves. We don't want to throw them away. And then the last one is our beet. And you can have a lot of fun with beets. And this one says, I got the beet. So pop him in here. Now, what are we going to do next? Now they're going to cover up the soil and the seeds with a little extra. And they're just going to place it down like this. Not too much. Oh, they only need about a 1/4 inch. And so pot it, and then everybody gets to pat it down. And you can either do it like this, or they can do it like this if they wish to. But if they're comfortable with the feel of the soil by now, then they can just pat it down like this. Now, this is where they get to top water. And what we're going to do is very, very carefully. And so very, very carefully, what they want to do is just add a little bit of water at the top. What we don't want to see is this water draining through to the bottom and dripping, because they're going to be taking these home, and the last thing we want to do is have mom and dad's car having wet, soggy soil on it. So just a little bit. But there's another reason for that, is that when we water, we don't go splush and have a whole bunch of water swimming on the top here, because that's going to move the seeds around for starters, and the soil's going to get too wet. It just needs a little bit. And then when they get home, they can do a little bit more. And then after that, what they're going to do is they're going to check. They're going to put this on a plate or a saucer in the window. And what they can do is they can water from the bottom on the plate, and the holes in the bottom of the pot will soak up the water. Or they can just put their little finger down the side. And if it comes out wet, then it's not time to water. But if it comes out dry, then they can water, just like they've done now. We don't want to overwater these, because just like us, seeds will drown if they've got too much water. So now they get to take this home, and then we can continue on with our session with planting some of these seeds in our garden to grow at the Child Care Center.